Let's look at some more quadratic equations that can be solved by taking the square root of both sides. So let's look at our first equation. Let's say we have n squared minus 9 equals 91. So we want to get n squared alone so that we could take the square root of both sides. So let's begin by adding 9 to both sides, because now we have n squared equals 100. So we have n squared alone, which means at this point we can take the square root of both sides. And the square root of n squared, right, the exponent and the square root undo each other. They're opposite operations, so that leaves us with n equals square root of 100 is 10. And then we also have to remember that when you square root 100, you also get negative 10. So that means our second solution is n equals negative 10. So in this case, when we solve the equation by taking the square root of both sides, we got n equals 10 as our first solution, and n equals negative 10 as our second solution. Okay, let's look at another equation. Now let's say we have 9a squared minus 7 equals 29. And again, we want to solve this equation by taking the square root. So we want to get a squared alone, which means we have to get rid of minus 7. Okay, so we do that by adding 7 to both sides. And now on the left side, we have 9a squared equals, on the right side, 36. Okay, and now we just got to get rid of that 9, so that means divide both sides by 9. And so we get a squared equals 4. Perfect. So now that we have a squared alone, we're going to take the square root of each side so that we can just get a. Okay, exponent and square root, opposite operations, they undo each other. So that leaves us with a on the left. And on the right, square root of 4 is 2. But when you take the square root of 4, you also get negative 2. And that's how we get our two solutions. A equals 2 and a equals negative 2. All right, now let's look at one more problem. So far, we've seen that these solutions can be whole numbers, but that doesn't always happen. So let's see what happens in this third equation. We have 100 k squared minus 10 equals 15. So again, this is a quadratic. We see the exponent 2, and we're going to solve this by taking the square root. All right, let's begin. So first step here is going to be that we add 10 to both sides, because we want to get k squared alone. Okay, so after we add 10 to both sides, the left side ends with 100 k squared. And on the right side, 15 plus 10 is 25. Okay, now we want to get rid of the 100, so we divide both sides by 100. And so now we have k squared equals 25 divided by 100 is 0.25. We have a decimal, and that's okay. Let's keep going. So now we take the square root of both sides, or square root of each side, and exponent and square root undo each other. So that means on the left we have k, and on the right we have square root of 0.25, which works out to be 0.5. But when you take the square root of 0.25, you also get 0.5 negative, or negative 0.5. And so our two solutions are k equals 0.5 and k equals negative 0.5. So with this equation, we see that decimal solutions are possible. That's how things work. We have seen equations, quadratic equations, where the solutions are whole numbers or where solutions are decimals, both rational and irrational, and all of that is okay. That's what happens when you solve a quadratic.